We cover one of four topics every single week: lead generation and building your client base, sales skills to close more deals, of course, inspiration, motivation to keep us all going, and your business structure. Because we've got to focus this year, 2024, on working smarter, not just harder. Many of us can't work any harder than we already are. Now, last week, Chris explored New Year's resolutions. We discussed what you want from your life in 2024 and how to turn those New Year's resolutions into reality. And now, on to this week's topic: revving up your first quarter. Now, I hope that we've all had time to enjoy the holidays, spend some time with family and friends, but you're coming back supercharged to hit the ground running in 2024. The question we always get this time of year is, where should I focus my energy on to drive the most closed business in 2024? There are so many options, but today, Chris is going to take you through what he likes to call the big three strategies. Strategies that will give you a well-rounded lead gen strategy to kick off the new year. Okay, let's get started. Please help me welcome nationally recognized real estate expert, Chris Leader. Hello, Chris. Great to see you. Happy New Year. And I hear you're coming down to Delray Beach later this week.
I am. I'm looking forward to coming down and joining forces with you, putting our heads together and strategizing how we continue to make this an amazing experience and grow our business. So just like you guys, Chris and I are looking forward to expanding our footprint as well. Well, I want to say good morning to everybody on the West Coast and good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast, and a big hello to everybody in between. And like Chris said, Happy New Year to everyone. It's out with the old and in with the new. And there's lots of stuff going on this year that I think we want to keep our eye on. You'll have a little more time this year to be able to achieve your goal. In fact, I can almost guarantee you, I can find each and every one of you 2 more hours every month. Why is that, you say? Because it's a leap year this year. That means we got 366 days instead of 365 to get that annual goal done. So the gods in real estate have gifted us another day to make sure we hit our targets. So that's going to be all fun. To help you hit your goal this year, I think that we want to keep our eye on mortgage rates. I was doing a little bit of homework this morning before I jumped on, just so I was up to date and up to speed. Everybody's talking about at least 100 basis points or 1% in the mortgage industry this year. And that would have a very positive effect and help thaw some of the freeze we've experienced in the marketplace. So, hang on, buckle up. I think it's going to be a great year. When I looked at Canadian rates this morning, and we work on both sides of the border, Canadian rates right now are at 5.79 for a 5-year fixed. And if the rates drop a point, that's going to put you in about the 4.75 range next year. And I got to tell you, you get under 5% and everybody should be buying houses. Okay. Now, at the same time, I looked up the US 30-year fix this morning. It's at 6.5. That's kind of an average. And if it drops to 5.5, because we'll get that full 100 basis point drop, I think it's going to have a real good impact. Now, people always say to me, Chris, how come the rates are different on both sides of the border? I mean, we're neighbors, our economies are so close. What's going on there? The simple answer is the rates are slightly higher in the US because the economy is better. That means you guys are firing on all 8 cylinders. Everybody's forecasting a good solid year economically. We were talking recession 2023, 2024, but the Fed has figured out how to stick a soft landing, get the rates just right, enough to get the economy going, but not too much to overheat it and create inflation. Not too much to cool it down so that it freezes out the market. So we're going to have a good year this year. And in Canada, our economy isn't as good as the US. So of course, the central bank there, the Bank of Canada, the equivalent of your Fed, has to bring it down just a little bit more to make it more attractive for businesses to borrow, invest, and expand. So all of that being said, I think that it's going to be a good year for us. But you're going to need listings, guys. That's going to be the key. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes, about looking for new business opportunities, where to look, what you should expect, that sort of thing. The winner this year is going to be the agent that's carrying the inventory. It's going to be a complicated space for buyers. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But generally what I'm saying here is you need to go out and put for sale signs with your name on it on people's lawns in your community. And if you do that, we're going to have an amazing year. So I'm going to be after you to stay focused on getting those seller listings. Now, there are a few things in the news that I wanted to bring to your attention. Like, for instance, New Jersey has just passed a new law that is in relationship to making cold calls. We know in our industry how compliant we have to be, and we've had the fear of God put into us by every manager, every broker, every senior leader in the country. And God help you if anybody finds you with an auto dialer. You know, that is a capital offense to which you would be hung in the town square right now in real estate. But setting all of that aside, New Jersey, this is what New Jersey's doing. They're enacting a new law as of January 1, Jerry Seinfeld law. And it's got to do with a Jerry Seinfeld episode where people were cold calling him and making him crazy. So they actually named it the Seinfeld law in New Jersey. And the law says that if you are making a compliant call to somebody you don't have a relationship with, because they're not on the do not call list, so they're on, that you can call them, you have 30 seconds to introduce yourself, introduce your company, and the product that you are trying to sell. Otherwise, you would be not compliant if you didn't get that out. So they don't want to get on the phone with you for 5 minutes to find out that you're trying to find out if you want them to buy or sell a piece of real estate. So interesting. It's just that they will not leave that alone. And we're going to talk about phone prospecting in a few minutes. And I want to bring that to your attention. So just be aware of it's a pretty tenuous space that we're in. 2024 has got some challenges right now from what I see that could affect us. Like, it's been a long time since I've seen so many wars going on all over the place, or people talking about war, or wanting to get into a war, or think they should be in a war. But I will tell you this, war is not good for business. War takes everybody's focus away from the opportunities to trade and expand. So it's just, just keep your eye on the Ukraine situation, on the Palestinian-Israeli situation. We got Taiwan and China. We got the Houthi rebels. There's lots of different things going on out there that could affect us. So keep an eye on that. On top of that, in November, we have the presidential election coming up. And the closer you get to the presidential election, the more oxygen it sucks out of the business community and makes it more difficult. So just be aware of that, especially if you're listing real estate, talking to people who want to move. The closer we get to the election, and I think it's going to be a pretty tense election season. The closer we get, this is going to be a very unusual election. And then the third thing we have that we have to, and we're going to talk about this today, you have to be aware of this year is the changes that are happening on the buyer side of the transaction. And you're going to have your buyer listing presentation organized. You're going to have your talk tracks down. Even if you're a listing agent on the sell side, you need to be able to talk about commission with the buyer, what the seller is going to pay the buyer's agent, what contribution they're going to make, if any, what that looks like, what it would look like if they didn't, or what it would look like if they did a little, or what it would look like if they did a lot. You're going to have a really good conversation around that. And going forward, that's going to be part of our business this year. But I wanted to talk to you about going out and getting more business. And from my perspective, this is the most important attribute a salesperson can acquire. If you can be a rainmaker, and I use that term generally speaking, but if you can go out and find the business, all of the other things that are necessary to build a successful real estate sales practice, you can figure out. It's just that so often I find people spend so much time on getting organized, they don't spend time on finding the business. And there's lots of wonderful creative ideas that we can implement over time. But keep in mind, unless you cash flow the short term, the long-term strategies you have will never happen because you're not going to have enough resources in the meantime. So we've got to make sure that you are focused every day at going out and finding new business opportunities. And if you do that, you are going to be one very busy agent who over time will have a chance to introduce new strategies in a systematic way from an affordability perspective that is going to be in alignment with your cash flow. So we're talking about making sure you got enough money to get across to the other side. Now, so today's topic, Chris said, is revving up your Q1. Let's get lots of for sale signs on the front lawn, on people's lawns, so we can make this just the most amazing year ever. So the big three things Chris was mentioning that I wanted to talk to you about to rev up your business, and the three strategies I wanted to talk to you about today is social media, print marketing, and then how to use a phone effectively in terms of being able to use that time for FSBOs, expired, sphere of influence, farming, lots of stuff we can do with that. But you got to do it right. So you may be wondering why online leads isn't on the list. Well, online lead companies, from our research, now there's always going to be an outlier or an anomaly, but from our research, what we find is that you can spend a lot of money, maybe about $1,000 a month, and you're going to come up with, a pile of about 30 potential leads. Out of those leads, the reality is there might be one or two in there. So the conversion rate on these numbers, in fact, the conversion rate's getting lower and lower as they generally send out more and more poorly qualified leads. So the hard part with online leads is when you are following up with what you think is a potential lead only to find out the person wasn't interested. Now, this is emotionally and mentally, sometimes you could even say spiritually, exhausting to a salesperson to deal with so many no's. Because I think sometimes going into that, based on the fact that we had the understanding, or we thought that the prospect was interested in buying something, only to find out that they weren't. You go through this, and it's kind of the emotional connection we get with the possible outcome. So I'm just going to say that online leads, you got to be pretty tough. You got to be able to jump in and jump out, and it's very transactional. So you're going to notice it's not on our list today. But the first one I wanted to talk to you about was social media. And I want to talk to you about some of the positive things we can do in this space and some of the things you need to be concerned about. So, for instance, let me start with this. Social media, the keys to consider. The first key is frequency. Social media is a non-invasive way to stay connected with your sphere. So I like the idea that we've got a sphere. And when I talk about sphere, I know it sounds very technical, but we're talking about friends, people who know you, people you've done business with. If you could stay connected with them, you see, if we weren't using social media for this, you'd have to pick up the phone and literally call or knock on their door or go visit everybody on that list to maintain that relationship. Now, I don't expect you're going to have the same maintenance using social media, but you're going to have that friendly reminder that you're always out there, you're always available, and you've always got good things to contribute to the conversation. It's just a gentle reminder is what we're using this for. And if you haven't got something to say that you feel is relevant today, then my suggestion is post something interesting every morning. And if you can't find something, then what I'm going to say is just find a post from a different article that you really liked and repost it so people don't forget you. You're kind of keeping it alive and keeping it going. Now, for this to work effectively, and here's what happens with this. We know we should do this. We know we should have something up every day. But hey, we get going. We're running a little late today. We get to the office. There's a bunch of things we get to follow up on. And guess what? We didn't get our social media post up. So it lacks that consistent frequency. So what I want you to do is I want you to consider doing it every morning before you do anything else. It's like that morning high five that Sean Carpenter from Ohio teaches us. It's one of those first things you do is you post to your social media sites every day, something, first thing in the morning even, so that you're going to find that you're keeping those sites active and alive. The second key here is to be original in your content. Original content is best. However, you can't think of something unique every day. So like I said, you could look at sharing an article that you thought really had landed, that was interesting with your sphere. And then what I would do is I would add your thoughts to the article so they get a sense of what your perspective is on it. So it'll bring that article to life. It'll make it a little more personable. And you maybe even find that we get some engagement when we're talking to them in a one-on-one situation because they've been looking at our articles and the things we've been putting up. The third one I have for you in this category in the key is not to make it a one-way feed, to only promote your listings. It's about being social. So one of the things I like to do with social media, for instance, is I think it's important if you have a social media site specific, like say a Facebook site specific to your farm. So we're posting stuff about what's happening in the community, not selling our houses, but we're posting it under the banner of a real estate professional locally who manages and looks after that site. What's going to happen is you're going to find local people are going to engage and they're going to see you at a local level. Now, it takes some effort on your part. to do everything we're talking about. And you have to be careful not to go down the social media rabbit hole and spend weeks there getting everything organized and not get any listings, not talk to people, and not sell stuff. So keep in mind that this has to be managed and maintained from a time perspective, and you can't do it all at once. So you got to do it in little bite-sized pieces, and you're going to build out your social media position over time. It's not something that's going to happen right away. So be patient with yourself. The fourth key I have in this category is to focus on video now. I'm going to say that video is going to get way more attention. People love little short videos. They like short ones because they're able to get the essence of what you're talking about, and they don't have the time today to watch a full length motion picture. Instead of writing posts, maybe record a video. I know that we all have that uncomfortable feeling. We've tripped over a word, or my hair isn't right, that sort of thing. But you got to get past it. Just be you. Talk from the heart. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be authentic. And it's got to be grounded and built on a foundation of relevant, good, current content that people would find value in. So just food for thought on that, on the social media stuff. The fifth key is to using good audio video equipment. Now, good doesn't mean expensive today. In fact, you're going to be shocked at how affordable it is to put a studio together in your office or in your house. And our social media expert, Chloe DeVerrier, helped assemble this list. And now you don't need everything on this list, but you're going to need obviously a good camera. Either your Android or your Apple will work perfectly. You're going to need some kind of tripod to be able to mount that on. You're going to need a mic so that and you're going to be surprised again. A decent quality mic is not expensive, but it's going to change the whole sound experience that people are experiencing when they're listening to you. And the last thing you're going to need is some lighting. And the lighting needs to be on your face. And we've all seen people on Zoom who've got the window behind them and all we see is a silhouette. But that was the sort of thing we should have been dealing with 2 or 3 years ago in the pandemic. Today, you should be properly lit. And I tell you, to put a studio like this is not expensive. You can use this QR code to investigate some of the support products that we have in this category. This, I thought, would make life easier for you, but it'll show you. And if you want to talk to our social media expert, you are welcome to do that. She'll spend a few minutes with you and help organize your purchase if you needed that. Now, the sixth key in social media is unless you pay, your posts won't likely be seen. Now, I did a little homework this morning before I went on, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea. Your organic reach today with Facebook, for instance, is about 2.2%, or it could be as low as 1.1% of your overall Facebook followers. Think about that. Only 1% of the people that follow you are actually seeing your post. So let me give you an example. In the article I read, if you had 1,500 followers, your Facebook post might be seen by as little as 33 people. Now, you got to think about this because this is one of those rabbit holes that people fall into in social media. You've bought the equipment. You've put the effort into it. You're writing great posts. You're spending hours creating videos. You're posting this stuff and nobody is seeing it. So you got to think about how much time are you willing to put into this? And you have to think about what type of spend are you going to have available to try to get the traction you need so that your followers are actually seeing your post. You got to pay to boost your post. So if you invest time to create the content, you need to invest a little money to get it in front of people or as many people as possible. So that's really the issue here. I see people that are spending a lot of time in this space, but then they won't spend any money to boost the post, for instance. And then we find ourselves in a situation where they're putting a lot of effort into this and they're not getting any results. One of the things I'd recommend you do is you track your deals from 2023 and go back and look and see how many were actually based on an on a social media relationship based on your social media marketing. And then think about the amount of time you've spent in this space and how costly it can be. So I want to make sure that if you're going to spend time here, you're really getting it organized. Strategy number 2, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do social media before I leave that. You just got to do it well and you got to do it right. And I'd rather see you start to do it small and very well organized and be consistent than to kind of run all over the place and not get any traction in any of the spaces. Strategy number 2 is direct mail. I like direct mail, but it's got to be a consistent process to get the traction you're looking for. Direct mail is a great marketing tool if it's done well. You know, if you live in a sought after area and there's no agents doing any marketing, then this is probably a good area for you to consider. Like, for instance, where I live, and I live in a nice neighborhood, not a mansion, just a nice neighborhood. I'll be surprised if we get a mail piece once a month, which I know many of you are saying, oh no, in my house I get 20 a week. I don't know, but I can tell you that I don't see a lot of people doing a great job in this space. Everybody talks about it, but I don't know a whole lot of people that are doing it consistently. Print marketing is an investment. If it's done properly, it can be a very powerful lead gen in a chosen market over a longer period of time. It's really rare you send out a mail piece and the person calls you right away and says, hey, can you come list my house? That is a very unusual situation. I mean, that's just nothing but dumb luck and timing. Most of the time, your mail pieces have to be sent out consistently over 6 months, 7 months to finally get the attention of the local community. So when they think real estate, they think you. Now, first key in choosing a market. And often I hear from people who are trying to market to too many homes. I'll find that there are people out there that, they want to market to 3,000 properties. Most people don't have the resources financially to maintain a consistent campaign regularly on a timeline that's going to get the impact they're looking for. So shooting out a marketing piece once a quarter isn't going to get you the result. You need to be able to market regularly, like once or twice a month. I always like 500 homes. And if I was selling real estate today, I would work my neighborhood in the close 500 homes. Also, one of the rules of thumb that you need to look at is you should choose a marketplace that has approximately an 8% turn rate. Now, the higher you go in price, luxury market, the turn rate goes down, and the lower you go, the higher the turn rate goes up. I particularly have always been fond of bread and butter real estate. I like bread and butter because as quickly as you put it on the market, price it properly, somebody's going to buy it. But if you go into luxury homes, you know that they could be on the market a lot longer. The exposure is a lot higher. The seller's requirements are higher. The investment is bigger. So all of that can be a challenge. So I like bread and butter. So pick a neighborhood that turns frequently. The second key I have for you is that your marketing pieces have to connect with the people you're sending them to. I know we've written it up. It needs a hook, and I know that sounds a little crass and I don't mean it to, but I live in a neighborhood that's full of baby boomers. If you were sending out marketing materials to people about move-ups or your first time home purchase, that sort of thing, then it's not going to land. And I'm trying to use some extreme examples. The problem here is most of the time people send out a mail piece, but it's generic. So it doesn't speak to anybody. And then they get no traction from it and they end up wasting their money. It's got a nice graphics, got a beautiful picture of a house, free evaluation. Call me if you want details. Listen, that's not going to work for anybody today. We need a more specific message. In my neighborhood, it would be about downsizing. Now the kids have moved out, or how to get your house prepped. There's different things that would be attractive to a baby boomer. You need to think if that's the demographic in my community, you want that message going out. The third thing is, from a cost perspective, you want to be able to use a mail walk or every door direct. So in Canada, we have postal walks. In the United States, you have every door direct, but it allows you to send out a mail piece regularly at a much reduced rate because it is a specific number of homes in a specific neighborhood. And it is, and your campaign and your marketing pieces, your templates have to be eye-catchy in terms of your campaign for Q1 to get this thing rolling. So let's make sure our graphics are strong. The fourth key I have for you is patience. And I said this earlier. Selling for people is a huge decision. Unless you land on somebody who just had an argument with their partner and is threatening divorce, I can't see how one postcard would empower somebody to pick up the phone and call you and say, come list my house. So usually when somebody's thinking about selling, it's that they are thinking about it, and it takes a little while to think about it. So your consistent campaign, high quality, really great local information, specific to the demographic that you're going after, is going to get their attention. You're going to plant those seeds and you're going to be able to harvest that crop over time. It's an investment into the local community to get the results you're looking for. I really like CoreFact as one of the products that's available. And if you have an opportunity, you should investigate this product. I like it because you can go in and book your postcard campaigns in advance. You can put them on the calendar. You understand what the budget is, and they really set this thing up so it's very affordable. They got some great data, and one of the things I really like is they use a QR code on there so you can get local information as a homeowner about what's selling in the neighborhood. But what it's valuable for you is because once they click on the QR code, you get the contact details and it allows you to follow up. Now, we've arranged a good price with Corfac. They've reduced their setup, and their cost per postcard mailed to somebody's house is 74 cents. I don't think you can buy postcards for 74 cents, let alone mail a great quality postcard to somebody's house consistently every month for that price. Now, I want you to know we don't get paid by Corfac. We just like the product, and I think it works. So if you were looking for a product to investigate, I'd recommend that one. Now, strategy number 3 I had for you was phone prospecting and working and talking to people using the telephone. I want to start off by saying we absolutely have to be call compliant. We have to be respectful of the do not call list and all the rules that go along with it. But phone prospecting, I bring that up, and agents often cringe. So call it whatever you want. Call it warm calls, friendly calls, warm calls to new people. Call your sphere, whatever you want, whatever makes you feel better. But you need to stay in touch with people. So don't be surprised when you see somebody's house go up on the MLS with another agent that you sold them a house a couple of years ago if we don't maintain those relationships. In fact, there's even laws in the do not call system that talks about how long it has to be from a time perspective since you last talked to somebody. What I want you to do in your farm is develop permission-based marketing, maintain your relationships with your sphere, and get permission to talk to people and follow up and stay in touch. This is going to make you a very valuable local resource. Now, the first key to making phone calls is you've got to practice your scripts. Don't wing it. These conversations should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They need to sound casual, but they need to have intent. Scripts are really good conversation openers to see where they may have an interest in selling. Now, I got to tell you, talk track scripts and dialogues have been around forever, and the best way to deliver them is to practice them with another colleague in the office before you start making your calls. Even if they're friendly calls to your sphere, your family, your friends, your neighbors, it doesn't hurt to practice those calls so that you get the result that you're looking for. The second key is to ask questions. When you're talking to people, you want to practice using the acronym FORD: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Those are the things you want to discuss with people because it gets the conversation rolling. Now, I love the curiosity question, and this is a favorite of mine. At some point in the conversation when I'm talking to somebody, I always drop this in. If there's one thing you could change about your current house, what would it be? And let them talk. They'll run with it. They'll tell you what they would like. And then, of course, at the very end, if you're closing for an appointment or talking to somebody and asking for a commitment, the best closing question you can always ask somebody is, do you have any more questions? And really what they're doing if they say no is they've given you the authority. Well, then let's just book an appointment for me to come by and have a look at your property again. And we can view it, and take a much more closer look at it. So I got time on Thursday, or would Saturday afternoon be better? Alternate choice. Now, the third key is to know the market. When you're calling people, you need to know everything about the area that you're calling and the community you're calling and your farm. What I find horrible is the number of agents I meet locally in my community. And if I was to ask them questions, they couldn't give me specific answers. But here's the scary part. I have a sister-in-law, lives right across the street from me. She doesn't sell houses, never has, and never had a real estate license. But she has got this real estate thing going on where she loves to check on all the new listings, what the decorating's like, what they sold for. She knows everything about my neighborhood. Well, I got to tell you, she knows more about the neighborhood than most of the real estate agents I talk to. This is not a good position for the real estate community to be in. The real estate community should be very comfortable with everything that's going on and be able to talk incredibly knowledgeable. When you run into somebody in the public who knows more than the real estate agents do, this concerns me. Now, the fourth key I have for you is most agents don't like being challenged, so they avoid these complicated for sale by owner conversations, expired conversations, or even local conversations with people. When you're talking to people in a conversation, you've got to talk with conviction. That means you can't use the word "I think homes in your neighborhood are," or "I think," because once you use the word "think," in the back of my mind, either consciously or subconsciously, I'm starting to question, do you know what you're talking about? And the other thing I was going to say is you want to use the word know, not think. Let me tell you what I've seen recently in your local market. So you can tell I'm speaking from a point of, of complete understanding. You got to know the market. You got to have your words down. You got to market consistently. And guys, it is a game of patience and consistent strategies every day. Every day, you got to have an hour of power on your calendar. And I got to tell, I'm going to leave you with this before we go to questions. We're going to go to questions here in a minute. We're going to go to questions here in a minute. If you don't prospect for business, however you want to do it, Sphere, Farm, FISBO, expired, you're not going to have any business.